So hello and welcome to the video, and it's time for another one of my periodic update videos. I try to make content that will remain relevant for as long as possible, but things change. And whenever I've gathered half a dozen changes of significance, I sit down to make a video to explain those changes. Now that time has come. Now amazingly, British Airways hasn't done anything monumental since they changed everyone's membership year ends, but don't worry, they will still get a mention. So if you'd like to hear about 6 changes to the travel landscape that may impact you, stick around.
Hi, I'm Matt and this is Matt's Planet. I aim to entertain, educate and inspire with my travel adventures from planning to execution. I'll show you how you can travel in style for a lot less than you'd think. So subscribe so you can come with me.
So the first change is a big one. American Express releases a British Airways co-branded credit card through which you can earn a companion voucher if you put a certain amount of spending through that card over the course of a year. That companion voucher is widely regarded as the very best travel benefit it's possible to get in the United Kingdom. And if you use it shrewdly, it can be extremely valuable. So the change is that American Express has increased the amount of spend you need to put through the card to earn the voucher. And they've increased it a lot, by half in fact. So instead of needing to spend £10,000, you now need to spend £15,000. And if that isn't enough, they've also raised the annual fee not by 50% but by 20% from £250 a year to £300. This is not good news and it has not been received well, I think it would be fair to say. And Amex seems to have made a hash of how this increase is actually going to be executed, but I'll come back to that a bit later on. A 50% increase in that spending target is massive, but I think it benefits from having a little bit of context put around it. The card was introduced into the market in 2004, so for 20 years that spending target has been fixed at £10,000. So I had a look at the Bank of England inflation calculator, and that spending threshold would have inflated to £17,400 today had it increased each year by the rate of inflation, against which £15,000 doesn't sound quite so bad. I've seen lots of people online who are furious with this change and who are looking to give up their cards. Accepting a 50% increase overnight is very hard to swallow, but there's an asymmetry of perception here. It's much easier to see a sudden increase in something and to get upset about where you've ended up than it is to recognise that things have been getting progressively more in your favour for many, many years. So for 20 years, the threshold for that companion voucher has gotten progressively easier to achieve each year as inflation has eroded the true value of that fixed £10,000. Using that Bank of England calculator in reverse, £10,000 today, just before this change, would actually have been worth £5,700 in 2004 when the card was released. It's very hard to separate the emotions from the reality of the numbers. But having spent quite a lot of time thinking about this change, I've decided to conclude that I've been lucky to have had a cheaper and cheaper threshold for each of the 9 years that I've held the card. And even after this increase, the companion voucher is still easier to achieve in real terms than it was for the first 6 years of this card's existence. Life is much more enjoyable if, like mine, your glass is usually half full. And the final non-emotional angle for me to think about is how I would feel if I approached this card for the very first time today, with this £15,000 a year spending requirement, which is £1,250 a month. I reckon I would see that as being quite good value, given the value you can get out of using the companion voucher, so I reckon I would still apply today. And a word on the fee increase. That 20% is about the rate of inflation we've seen in the UK since Putin's illegal invasion of Ukraine. So I'd very much prefer it if they hadn't increased the annual fee, but they have. But the rational part of me understands that increase and can live with it, even if YouTube advertising rates haven't increased by 20% over that same period. So that's me, but there are 2 groups of people for whom this change will be very significant. The first is those who are already struggling to get the £10,000 through the card they needed to get the voucher. This has made that very much more difficult. The voucher is not worth going into debt for, and it is not worth buying unnecessary things just to generate the spend to trigger the voucher. And the second group is people who don't get a lot of value out of the vouchers that they do earn. If you ever let them lapse, or if you use them on short haul or economy class redemptions, the mathematics of the card may already have been marginal, and it's just got a lot worse with this increased threshold. I'm sure Amex expects this to trim its customer base somewhat, and remember, it is their scheme, not yours. And they have obviously concluded that it is in their best interests to make this change, even if it loses them a chunk of customers. And it loses them a chunk of goodwill amongst the customers that they retain. They've also made a bit of a hash about communicating how this change will come into force. My Amex year ends in May, and when the year turned, I saw this in my account. If I spend £10,000 before May 2025, I'll get the voucher. And I snipped this off the website, which clearly states that this change will only affect years commencing after the 1st of November 2024. And then about a week ago, the app changed to this, which now states that if I don't get to £10,000 before the 1st of November, then the goalposts will move and I'll need an additional £5,000 within the year that's already commenced. Now, this was actually the transition basis that I'd expected based on reading articles when this change was announced, so I'm not devastated because it's gone back to what I was sort of expecting anyway. But I did get excited when I thought that the year I was already in wasn't actually going to be affected. And it seems pretty poor to move those goalposts mid-year. And in preparing for this video, I had another look at my account online, and online it actually currently says both things. Now, if I don't reach £10,000 by November, I will be giving them a call to have an argument. I'm actually really happy that I snapped all of those images in preparation for this video. So the voucher you earn hasn't changed, and it remains the best travel benefit available in the United Kingdom. It's annoying that the targets have moved, and by so much, but the rational part of me can live with it. If you are already dithering about whether the card worked for you, this will probably make up your mind. And if you're thinking, well, this card sounds great, why don't I know about it? There'll be an email address in the description below. Send me a quick email and I'll send you back a referral link that you can use to apply for this card and receive a boosted welcome bonus, and I'll get a few avios too. So item 2 today is another example of it's their loyalty program, not yours. Hotels.com first promised to gut their loyalty program over a year ago, and it has already been gutted in the United States. We now have a date when that will also happen in the United Kingdom. The scheme they're ditching gave you 10% of the price you paid for a hotel night back in forms of value that could be used against a future booking. After 10 nights, you could redeem that value against an 11th night's booking. It feels like a 10% discount, but because it's applied against the 11th night, it's actually a 9.1% discount. Don't forget, I was an accountant for many years. The new One Key scheme they're moving towards gives everybody 2% back on hotel bookings. They've taken a page from the BA communication strategy by claiming that this is a good thing for us all, but it's a 7.1% reduction in the amount of reward available. Clearly, the old scheme was too generous, and this is the inevitable correction. Remember, it's their scheme and it has to be profitable. Logic might dictate that Hotels.com can now reduce the price of its hotels by 7%, as it doesn't have to put such value back into its loyalty program. But the headline rates they publish are the ones that compete against the other online booking engines, and as that advertised price needs to be competitive, I have no doubt at all that prices will not fall. There's transition arrangements, and the specific date in which your conversion will happen has not been announced yet, so it is all a little bit more complicated in real life. Value you have stored up under the old scheme will be converted across to the new scheme, so you won't lose anything. And you will now be able to get a bit of money back from airline bookings that will go into that same pot. But the essence of all of this for me is that Hotels.com and Expedia will be losing me as a customer, and from what I've seen online, they will be losing a tremendous number of other people as customers too. But that will probably delight them though, as customers like me are the ones they're not making much money from, so they'll probably be happy to see me go. Remember, it's their scheme and they want to make money from it, it's not yours. So how will I book my hotels going forwards? Well, I'm not sure. Let me know in the comments if you've figured out a good home for your bookings if you were previously with Hotels.com. I will though be looking very closely at Booking.com, as they often offer a very good avios rate, and there is sometimes a possibility of stacking a purchase through them with the BA shop. I doubt I'll ever get 9.1% in value, but I'm sure I'll be able to do better than the 2% now on offer. Point 3 is that Fiji Airways have announced that they will be joining the OneWorld Alliance as full members next year in 2025. They're already a OneWorld Connect partner, indeed they're the only OneWorld Connect partner, but they've decided to upgrade to full membership. I'm not entirely clear what difference this will make to us as travellers, but the more OneWorld members, the better in my book. I've not flown with them personally, but others have and report that they're a very decent airline. My strategy for this channel is to review all OneWorld members to give you a rounded view of where you can spend your avios. So it looks like I'll be going to Fiji at some point. Okay. Whilst I'm on the topic, Oman Air is still slated to join the alliance later this year. They are reported to be having some financial difficulties and have shed some of their fleet, including this plane, which I flew on under a Qatar booking, so there is some speculation that they may not join the alliance. I have booked to fly with them later this year, so hopefully me buying a ticket helps them out. Point 4, and I promised to give BA a mention, and it is a positive mention for once. For a couple of years now, they've offered double tier points on holiday bookings. That's a trip of over 5 nights where you've added a hotel or a car to a flight booking. Holidays need to depart from the UK, and you must have an account that's registered in the UK or the United States. This is a cracking way to boost the number of tier points you earn, and it has been very, very popular. And it works on BA code shares too. So if you booked 5 nights in Thailand, flying on Qatar Airways but under BA flight numbers, you'll earn 280 tier points each way, which doubles to 1,120 tier points, 75% of what you need to get to BA Gold. This double tier point scheme has been extended a few times, and it's now been extended again by another 6 months to the 30th of June 2025. The small print says that a holiday needs to be completed by this date to qualify. I was quite surprised they did this. It obviously makes economic sense for them to give away so many tier points, otherwise they wouldn't have extended it. But lounges are already groaning with status holders, so making it easier for even more people to achieve status seems like a great way of just irritating their loyalist of members. But BA has repeatedly shown that the views of the loyalist of their members doesn't feature strongly in their decision making, so perhaps this isn't so much of a surprise. And it is possible that they will extend this even further. But even if they don't, there's still a year's opportunity for you to double up on your tier points if you take a holiday. It has to start from the UK, which for these purposes includes Jersey, so you'd pay more for a premium cabin flight than you would if you were doing an ex-EU trip. But this doubling of the tier points means it can be even better value to start a tier point run within the United Kingdom. And it's certainly a lot more convenient to do so. Point 5 is Finnair. Now, not only do they have what I reckon is the best business class seat in the world. Now, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already to see my review of that seat, which will be along in a few weeks. But they also now use avios as their frequent flyer currency. And you are now able to freely move your avios back and forth between Finnair and BA, indeed between Finnair, BA, Qatar, Iberia and Aer Lingus. This has created some interesting opportunities. Finland is 3 hours closer to Asia than most Western European countries. So if you're prepared to position to Helsinki to pick up a flight heading east, there's some great value to be had with the redemption on Finnair. Plus you get to enjoy the seat and you get to enjoy Helsinki Airport. A video about my experience there will be along in a few weeks too. And as Helsinki is located pretty much on the Great Circle route between Europe and Asia, far more so than Doha or Dubai, Finnair has a strong Asian network and flight times can be surprisingly short, Russian airspace restrictions notwithstanding. I did see some ludicrously cheap redemptions, but I think they were errors that were thrown out of the conversion and they're no longer available. And Finnair does bring some interesting partners into the Avios universe. So whilst Brathens of Sweden and Juneo from China might not be that interesting, LATAM in South America maybe. I'm planning to make a detailed video about the Finnair loyalty scheme, as quite a few people use it in preference to the BA scheme. And in that video I'll cover these opportunities in more detail. But for now, be aware that there are some very interesting opportunities that arise from Finnair using Avios. And finally, not perhaps a huge point, but I've lost count of the number of people who've said they've taken a Sri Lankan trip from Abu Dhabi to Jakarta, having watched my experiences doing so. 560 tier points can be readily had for about 830 quid with a month or two's advanced booking. And pretty much everyone who's taken that trip reported having a fantastic time. Sri Lankan's planes are not in the first flush of youth, but the service and the catering seems to more than compensate for that in most people's reporting. Since my videos went live, Sri Lankan, along with all other airlines, have moved operations to Abu Dhabi's shiny new terminal, which I believe is quite a step up from the terminal that I reported on. And Sri Lankan has been having quite a lot of trouble with its reliability. Lots of people reported experiencing disruption between Abu Dhabi and Jakarta, mostly due to Sri Lanka not having the planes available to fulfil the flights that they've sold. Don't let that deter you from booking a trip, but I do advise you to build some buffers in if you are planning to go. You may get lucky, or you may have to agitate with Sri Lankan to make yourself lucky and get a direct flight between those two cities on Etihad, which is probably a better passenger experience, and you can still get the tier points by making an original routing credit claim when you get home. And that may very well be a win-win. Or you may get unlucky and have to spend a day somewhere waiting for the next Sri Lankan service. It's unscientific, but I sense that reports of disruption are slowing down, so hopefully Sri Lankan is sorting themselves out, and it remains a fantastic way to get a good chunk of tier points whilst having a great experience. So be aware and don't let the disruption ruin your trip. So that's 6 changes that you need to know about. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope there was something useful in there for you. Give the video a like, subscribe if you're new, leave me a comment. And if you'd like to support what I'm doing more directly, there is a Patreon account link in the description below. Thanks again for watching. See you all in the next one. Goodbye.